Welcome to the bold analysis. Nation is running some very interesting story on Friday, had a very interesting story on Friday, that the police bosses have been sneaking to the newsrooms and pushing for the salary increment of the men in uniform to be amplified because they are murmuring that the increase is a bit small and inconsequential. Just the other day, there was that story about a review of salaries. And the review of salaries saw senior ranks getting an increment from as little as 1,000 to 9,000. This is emerging, and the irony of all this is, as we speak, they're saying the increase is very less and very inconsequential. The same government now is planning to spend billions for changing police uniforms. For heaven's sake, you may want to ask, are we in a crisis of the uniforms that we now want to change police uniforms? Is it a crisis? It's not. Under the plan to resuscitate the economy, to revive the economy, there was a pledge at campaign trail that we will drop much, projects are just going to gobble funds from the government, but without a very key input. We are spending billions, and we found empty coffers. Is spending billions to buy new uniforms to police officers that some are still staying in shanties. Let me give you a very short story. On my way, I was from Mombasa. That road, Mombasa to, is it not Mtitandei? Ukipita Mtitandei, around Voi there. Peter, Kilifi, Makueni, those areas, Kitui. I saw, I was talking to someone, it showed me a police station that they still use any like grass-thatched structures in the middle of some forest-like area. As we speak today, there are police officers, police posts in far much areas of Turkana and some areas in Baringo that still stay in shanties. Now, instead of even putting up structures for those, we are spending billions to buy uniforms. Which, honestly, with all due respect, it is not a priority. Remember, now we are telling within 2 years, across 2 terms, there is the blue uniform that was checked during Matiang'i era. And I remember Matiang'i coming out in public, clashing with William Ruto, that they had a clash with William Ruto when William Ruto was the deputy president because of the police uniform tender. Someone wanted company X and someone wanted another company. And the whole matter was blown out by the media. And so, that has happened. We are adding the policemen 1,000 shillings. 1,000. While we are spending money for the uniforms. If you ask them, if you do public participation and ask them, or even ask the public, you'll realize that it's not a priority. It can still be good for the change of image and for the branding, but it's not a priority. Now, of course, they are part of the team that worked through very deplorable conditions. One of the most risky jobs, by the way. Now, they've been calling on media houses to amplify the plight of this matter, even though under a little bit secretly, because of the sensitivity of the matter, because that increase is very inconsequential. Now, I want to be, allow me to be very ironical here. sometimes this is a dose of their own. We want to believe very true. The police can rush to media to amplify these stories, and which is very legit. It is very logical. Of course, their call is very genuine, that the increase is small, as little as 1,000 ni kidogo. It's true. When teachers said we welcome, but we need 50%, even teachers were complaining. But when journalists were sent to cover the mass action called by Azimio Moja, they were profiled, they were hit and mistreated inhumanly by some of the police officers. But now this is, by that time you curtail the freedom of media. But when this now comes, you believe, no, you can now air our grievances. You know, I've always said, I've always told people that within my space that journalism has a symbiotic relationship with everyone, every Kenyan. When a teacher is going to street to protest, the journalist will be the person to carry the story. When a nurse is protesting and wants something government to know, it is the journalist that will carry the story. When the chief is doing something, it's the journalist that will carry the story. So the journalists have a symbiotic relationship. The media has a symbiotic relationship with all the other sectors. When Kenyans protested and went to the streets complaining about the cost of living, you were sent to the streets with guns, bullets, and tear gas, and some of elements within that police force actually used excessive force. And of course, people were beaten, dragged from their houses and beaten like wordless Kenyans. By that time, I think no one will see that, you know, there is a problem. Now, you are also seeing the problem. Sometimes, this is what they do. So instead of running to the media, seeking for that coverage, just down your tools and also protest. Yes, it is that simple. When some people protested, they were profiled, memed, killed, and brutalized inhumanly by some elements within the force. Now, if you think the 1,000 is little, then you also have the right to protest. The right to protest which is agitation towards what is not right by some Kenyans, was misunderstood and misused. So that people don't seem to understand that, okay, this is a way. And the same men in uniform, some were actually used to stifle the right to protest, which is a tool of agitating against something that you think is not right in government. And to make it worse, even after the deaths were reported, some police bosses will still come out and say that opposition leaders procured bodies so that they would amplify the stories of police brutality. Truth be told. So if the 1% is little, some of these things then comes out clearly that government eats its own people. As a country, I think we must agree that there's some things, you know, one of the things happening here is government operates with a lot of intelligence. They know very well that even by the time people are protesting on finance bill, the overtaxation in the finance bill, and the affordable housing levy that was being implemented, even civil servants were suffering. So some of these increments are just for cushioning, you know, to try to attempt to make an impression that, you know what, I know you guys are suffering, but I'm trying to do something. That is it. The increment is not on that we've sustained, the economy is now stable, so we're increasing. This is what, I don't know whether this is what Rigathi Gachagua promised the police during the campaign, because during the campaign, it was very open and very clear that we are going to make sure that if you add the salaries, when you carry people, take people home, you're going to arrest people. There have been a lot of the sweet ones around this. But there is a way government operates. And just like other Kenyans who are also protesting against what, according to them, was not right, I think the NPS also need to get their fair share. Because that is it. If you think the media was profiled, the public was profiled, and everyone else that would agitate against this met brutality. Some by order, and people lost the human aspect. People lost the human moral within the MPS. On this one, they're right to regret, because sometimes you'll actually think that after that protest they are going to get 100% salary increase. The increase is less than 1%. Let's meet in the next.